After my wife died, I hired a contractor to renovate her old law office. I was at church when he called and said, "Mr. Foster, you need to come see what we found. But don't come alone. Bring your sons." When I arrived, there was a hidden room behind the wall. I was shocked by what I saw inside. Before I tell you what was in that room, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. 10 months after Louise died, I finally found the courage to deal with her office. It wasn't much, just a converted garage behind our house on Monroe Street, about 12 feet by 15, but it had been hers, her sanctuary. For 23 years, she practiced estate law, there helping elderly clients protect what mattered most. The irony of that wouldn't hit me until later. I had avoided the place since the funeral. Every time I passed it, I saw her through the window. In my mind, reading glasses on her nose, bent over her desk, surrounded by legal files. But she was gone, and Stella, my granddaughter, needed a reading room more than I needed a shrine to grief. That's what I told myself when I called Gary Fletcher. Gary had done work for us before. Honest, reliable. When he arrived that Tuesday in late September, the air carried the first bite of autumn. Leaves were just beginning to turn on the oak, shading Louise's office. "Just clearing it out," I told him, handing over the key. "Shelves down, wiring updated. Better lighting. My son's daughter loves books." Gary nodded. Louise would have liked that. I went back inside. I couldn't watch him dismantle her space, her law books, her diplomas, the coffee mug she never fully washed, the yellow pads filled with her careful handwriting, the perfume bottle by the window. 3 hours later, my phone rang. "Mr. Foster," Gary sounded tight. "I need you to come out here." My stomach sank. "What happened?" "Just come see." He stood by the east wall bookshelf, the custom one Louise insisted on in 2001. He'd pulled it forward about a foot. "It moved too easily," he said. "Then I found this." Behind it was a wall safe, small, brushed steel, digital keypad. "I didn't know it was here," I whispered. "She hid it well," Gary said. "Tracks behind the shelf. Slides, if you know." My hands shook. "Can you give me a minute?" He nodded. Louise was sharp. If she hid something, there was a reason. I stood alone in the office that still smelled faintly of her perfume. Dust floated in the sunlight. Outside leaves rustled. Somewhere a lawn-mower hummed. The keypad glowed blue. Louise never mentioned a safe, but I knew her. 45 years teaches patterns. Her birthday, our anniversary. 615812. Nothing. I tried again, slower. The safe clicked. My heart pounded. I opened it. Inside was a USB drive, a sealed manila envelope, a small stack of papers with names, highlighted people I recognized from town. But the envelope stopped me. My name, in Louise's handwriting. "To Martin, read alone first." The tape was yellowed, old. My hands shook so badly I had to set it on her desk to open it. Inside was a letter. 3 pages, front and back. Her precise script the same I'd seen on notes and cards and grocery lists. I couldn't read it standing. I sank into her chair and unfolded the pages. The first line stole my breath. "My dearest Martin, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I've been hiding for 3 years. 3 years. 3 years she carried this while cancer took her. I needed to read this alone." I asked Gary Fletcher to head home. He nodded, understanding clear on his weathered face, and quietly closed the door behind him. I was alone with my dead wife's final words. The office had grown darker while I stood frozen at the safe. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting long shadows across Louise's desk. I sat in her chair, the leather one she spent countless evenings in reviewing cases, making notes in her precise handwriting. The letter felt heavy in my hands. Quality paper. Louise always believed important things deserved proper stationery. I smoothed it flat and forced myself to read. "My dearest Martin, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I've been hiding for 3 years. Derek is not who we think he is." My chest tightened. I read the line again. "Derek is not who we think he is. Our eldest son, the successful one, the one I'd been proud of for 44 years. 3 years ago, Mrs. Doris Keller came to my office. She lost her entire retirement savings, $380,000. The investment advisor who took it was our son." The words blurred. I blinked hard and kept going. "I investigated Martin. I had to be sure. There are 6 victims. 6 elderly clients who trusted someone calling himself Lucas Foster. $1.8 million stolen over 10 years. Lucas, our younger son, the struggling one, the one who'd filed bankruptcy 7 years ago, whose wife had left him, who taught high school math, and barely scraped by. Louise was saying Derek had used his brother's name. The worst part, Derek used Lucas's identity, bank accounts, forged signatures, everything in Lucas's name. If this comes out, Lucas will be arrested first. My hands began shaking. I set the letter down and tried to breathe. This couldn't be real. Derek lived in Maple Bluff, drove a Mercedes, took his family to Europe every summer. I'd thought he was brilliant, successful, dependable. Lucas, meanwhile, had always seemed fragile, quiet, disappointing if I'm honest. When he lost everything and Jenny left with their daughter, I'd wondered what bad choices he'd made. I picked the letter up again. I spent 2 years gathering evidence. I couldn't go to the police. Derek's framing is too perfect. Lucas would be charged before anyone looked deeper. I needed proof no one could ignore. The USB drive has everything: money trails, bank records, and a recording of Derek confessing. I got him to admit it. I told him I was dying, that I only wanted the truth. He believed I'd carry his secret to my grave. A recording. Louise had recorded our son confessing to destroying his brother's life. I planned to expose him after your retirement party. I wanted you to have one last happy memory before everything collapsed. But the cancer moved faster than I expected. The choice is yours now, Martin. Protect Lucas. He's innocent. He's always been the better son, and we never saw it. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't fix this before I left. Louise. The signature wavered. She must have written this near the end when holding a pen hurt. I set the letter down, trembling. The son I'd bragged about, praised, admired, was a thief who preyed on elderly people like Mrs. Keller. And the son I'd pitied, quietly judged, felt ashamed of, had been framed for 7 years. 7 years of ruin. The divorce. The debt. The shame in Lucas's voice whenever money came up. None of it had been his fault. Louise had known, for 3 years, while cancer consumed her, while I talked proudly about Derek and worried about Lucas. She'd just smiled and held my hand. 44 years. I'd been blind for 44 years. The USB drive sat beside the letter labeled in her handwriting, "Insurance do not lose." The truth. The proof that would destroy one son and save the other. I had to know. I had to see it myself. The USB drive sat on the desk, labeled in Louise's careful handwriting, "Insurance. Do not lose." My hands were still shaking as I plugged it into the laptop Gary had left behind. Outside, the streetlights were on. Monroe Street looked peaceful through the window. Neighbors walking dogs, kids pedaling home before dinner. Normal life continuing while my world collapsed, inside this dark office lit only by the laptop's glow. The drive opened. 2 folders appeared, victims and recordings. I clicked victims first. 6 subfolders, each neatly named and dated. Even as my heart pounded, I recognized Louise's precision. 45 years of legal work showed in every detail. I opened the first folder, 01, Doris Keller. A photo appeared. An elderly woman with white hair and a gentle smile, wearing a flowered cardigan. Someone's grandmother. Someone who trusted us. Below the photo was a document. Doris Marie Keller, age 83. Widowed, 2009. 1 adult son deceased. Primary caregiver to grandson, age 16. Retired elementary school teacher. Total stolen $380,000 over 18 months. Method investment account opened under the name Lucas Foster. Social security number matched Lucas's. All signatures forged. Client believed she was working with Louise Foster's younger son. Money trail funds moved through shell companies before reaching Derek Foster's accounts. I stared at the screen. $380,000. A lifetime of savings. Money meant to raise a grandson after tragedy. And Derek had taken it, using his brother's name, letting Lucas take the fall. There were 5 more folders, 5 more faces, 5 more ruined lives. I clicked recordings. 8 audio files appeared. My cursor hovered over the first, 2023, 9/15. Confrontation, Derek 1. 3 months before Louise died. I clicked play. Louise's voice filled the room. Calm at first, then Derek's smooth, confident. The voice I'd praised for years. Louise named Doris Keller. Derek deflected. Louise pressed harder. Then his tone changed. He said Lucas's name was on everything. That Lucas would be arrested first, that the elderly had more money than they needed, that Lucas was weak, a failure, that he had won. Then Louise cried. Then the door slammed. I stopped the recording, my hands barely able to move. Derek's laugh echoed in the silent room, cold, proud, cruel. I won, Mom. I won. That voice belonged to my son, the son I bragged about. The son I believed was strong and successful. But what I'd heard wasn't strength, it was corruption, pride in destroying his own brother, satisfaction in stealing from vulnerable people, joy in breaking his dying mother's heart. I could hear Louise crying on the recording. She'd been dying, and she'd spent her final months gathering proof to protect Lucas from the trap Derek built. 7 more recordings waited, 6 more victims. I couldn't listen yet. I needed to rethink everything I knew about my younger son, the bankruptcy, the divorce, the shame in his eyes when money came up, the way his life never seemed to recover. It hadn't been failure. It had been sabotage. Louise was right. Lucas had always been the better son, and I had been blind to it for far too long. I spent the next 3 days going through every file, every document, every second of those recordings. With each piece of evidence, Lucas's life, his struggles, his failures, his quiet pain came into focus under a new and devastating light. The first day I couldn't stop thinking about the divorce. 3 years earlier, Savannah had left him. I remembered the phone call, Lucas's voice low and steady as he said, "She thinks I'm financially irresponsible, Dad, that my credit is ruined, and I'm dragging her down." We had believed it. I had believed it. I even told Louise that Lucas had never been good with money, that his problems were his own doing. Now I knew the truth. Derek's fraudulent accounts, all opened under Lucas's name, had destroyed his credit. The bankruptcy that followed wasn't Lucas's failure. It was Derek's trap carefully built to frame his brother while he grew rich on stolen money. We blamed Lucas. Derek never corrected us. On the second morning, I did something I should have done years ago. I pulled Lucas's credit report using access from an old joint account. The number hit me like a blow. 480. A score that meant no apartment, no loans, no way out. The report listed accounts Lucas never opened, investment firms registered between 2014 and 2019, all delinquent. One business registration read Lucas Foster Director, Foster Financial Consulting. Lucas had never worked in finance. He was teaching algebra while Derek used his identity to create shell companies. Every failure bore Derek's fingerprints. That night, memories rearranged themselves into a horrifying pattern. Lucas earned $52,000 a year. Every background check flagged his credit, costing him promotions. In 2020, when Stella needed emergency surgery, Lucas couldn't get a loan. I remembered the GoFundMe, how embarrassed I'd felt for him. Now I saw it for what it was, survival. He lived in a studio apartment, drove a 15-year-old Honda, never traveled, never complained. He kept teaching, kept showing up for his daughter. Lucas wasn't failing, he was fighting an invisible enemy. Meanwhile, Derek's life gleamed online. I searched his name and felt sick. His Chicago house cost $2.4 million. His LinkedIn listed him as managing partner of a firm with no real clients. Tesla in the driveway, designer suits, country club memberships, all funded by $1.8 million stolen from elderly people who trusted him. On the third day, I drove to Mrs. Doris Keller's house, a small ranch home with a neat garden. She answered slowly, cautious, until I introduced myself. Then her face softened with sympathy for Louise. When I mentioned the money, her eyes filled. $380,000, my husband's life insurance. I was saving it for my grandson's college. I told her the files showed Lucas's name. She shook her head immediately. Impossible. Lucas tutored my Jeremy in math, for free. That boy has a good heart. When I told her about Derek, she grew quiet, the polished one. Too perfect. I trusted him, but I knew Lucas wasn't the same man. I promised her I would make this right. Sitting in my car afterward, 2 truths settled in my bones. Lucas had been destroyed by his own brother, and I had been blind for 44 years. Louise had seen it. She'd spent her final years fighting for Lucas while I looked away. Now she'd left me the proof. Calling the police wasn't simple. Derek had framed this too well. If I failed, Lucas would be arrested first. I needed a plan, one that left no doubt who the real criminal was. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Derek had set this up too perfectly. Every document carried Lucas's name, his signatures, his social security number. Without Louise's evidence presented the right way, they would arrest the wrong son first. I needed a plan, and I needed help. 4 days after finding the USB drive, I called Savannah Parker, one of Louise's closest colleagues. When I told her what I'd discovered, there was a long silence. I knew Louise was investigating something, Savannah said finally. Even during chemo, she worked nonstop, She never told me details, but I knew it was serious. Then softly, Martin, you need the FBI. Louise once mentioned an agent, Craig Matheson, economic crimes. I'll get you his number. The next morning, I called Agent Matheson. His voice was calm seasoned, the sound of someone who'd spent decades dismantling carefully built lies. I sent everything through a secure portal. The victim files, the recordings, Louise's notes, all of it. 3 hours later, he called back. Mr. Foster, your wife's evidence is strong, but for prosecution, we need cooperation. Either the subject incriminates himself, or we present this with witnesses present. Can you arrange that? Yes, I said, I can. But that meant something I'd never imagined, setting a trap for my own son. The next 2 days, I barely slept. I sat in Louise's office, surrounded by proof of Derek's crimes, wondering how a father turns in his child. Then I thought about Lucas, destroyed by his brother, blamed by his family, punished for something he never did. I thought about Stella, 12 years old, growing up watching her father struggle while I looked the other way. I thought about Louise dying of cancer, using her last strength to protect Lucas while I remained blind. Justice for Louise, protection for Lucas, truth for Stella. That was what mattered now. On Saturday morning, I sent a message to the family group chat. I found something of your mother's during the office renovation. It concerns her estate and our family. I need you both here Saturday at 2 p.m. This matters. Dad. Lucas replied immediately. Yes, sir. Should I bring Stella? Is everything okay? 45 minutes later, Derek responded, Dad, I have a client meeting in Chicago. Can this wait? No, I wrote. 2 p.m. Saturday. About your mother. Don't be late. Saturday arrived cold and gray. I'd been awake since 5, reviewing the evidence again. Louise's letter lay on the desk beside me, her handwriting steady even near the end. Protect Lucas. At 9 o'clock, I called Agent Matheson. Today, 2 o'clock, Louise's office. We'll be there at 1:30, he said. Out of sight. When you're ready, open the front door. I spent the rest of the morning preparing. I dressed carefully, choosing the blue shirt Louise always said brought out my eyes. They looked dimmer now at 68 than they once had, but I wore it anyway. I found Louise's wedding ring removed in her final days and threaded it onto a chain around my neck. It felt like bringing her with me. At 1:45, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My hands were steady. My resolve was steel. Louise had spent 2 years gathering this evidence while cancer killed her, fighting alone to protect the son I'd failed to see. The least I could do was be brave enough to use it. Whatever the cost. They arrived minutes apart. Lucas came first, holding Stella's hand, his 12-year-old daughter's face tight with worry. Then Derek arrived, parking his Tesla, a car worth nearly 2 years of Lucas's teaching salary. I watched from the window as they walked up the driveway. Lucas moved carefully, one hand resting protectively on Stella's shoulder. Derek strode in with the confidence of a man who had never doubted his place in the world. They were both my sons, and one had spent a decade destroying the other. Inside Louise's office, I had arranged the room with care. Lucas and Stella sat together on the small couch, Stella pressed against her father. Derek took the armchair across from them, settling in like he owned the space. I stood behind Louise's desk, the laptop open, the evidence ready. Thank you for coming, I said evenly. I know this feels sudden, but it's important. Derek glanced at his watch. Dad, I have a flight back to Chicago at 6. Can we make this quick? It will take as long as it takes, I replied. 10 months ago, your mother died. Before she passed, she left me a letter. A letter about something she discovered. Something she spent 2 years investigating while cancer was killing her. Lucas leaned forward, confused. Dad, what are you talking about? I'm talking about fraud. Theft. Identity. Theft, I said, lifting Louise's letter. Your mother uncovered that 6 elderly clients lost a total of $1.8 million over 10 years, all through investment accounts opened in Lucas's name. The room froze. What? Lucas whispered. That's impossible. I know you didn't, I said, then turned to Derek. His face was carefully blank. But someone did. Someone who used Lucas's name, his social security number, and forged his signatures. Someone who made sure Lucas would take the fall. Derek stood abruptly. Dad-Mom was heavily medicated near the end. She wasn't thinking clearly. Whatever she wrote. Sit down, I said sharply, both of you. The authority in my voice surprised even me. Derek hesitated, then sat. Your mother was lucid enough to gather bank records, trace money trails, and record conversations, I continued. She confronted the person responsible, and she recorded that too. I turned the laptop toward them and clicked play. Louise's voice filled the room, calm, controlled. Derek, we need to talk. Derek's voice followed, smooth, confident. Mom, I'm busy. Doris Keller lost $380,000. A pause. That's unfortunate, Derek said. Market volatility? Don't, Louise interrupted. The money went into an account under Lucas's name, but you control it. I watched Derek's face as his own voice played back. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked toward the door. I understand, Theft, Louise said. I understand you've been using your brother's identity for 10 years. Silence. Then Derek laughed a cold, hollow sound. So what are you going to do? He asked on the recording. I'm going to the authorities. With what Derek replied. Lucas's name is on everything. He gets arrested, not me. Stella was crying quietly now. Lucas sat frozen, staring at the floor. The recording continued. Those old people had more money than they needed, Derek said. I used it to build a career. And Lucas, he's weak, a failure. Nobody would believe him over me. I won Mom. Louise's sobs, footsteps, a door slamming. I stopped the recording. The silence afterward was suffocating. Lucas stood shaking. My bankruptcy, he whispered. My credit being destroyed. That was you. Derek said nothing. Savannah left me because she thought I was irresponsible. Lucas went on, tears streaming. I couldn't get a loan when Stella needed surgery. I had to beg my students for help. I thought it was my fault, Dad, Stella whispered. And it was you, Lucas said, his voice breaking. You destroyed my marriage, my life, and you let me believe I deserved it. Derek stood slowly smirking. So what now? Dad, you're going to turn in your own son. Lucas pulled Stella close. Derek waited confident, certain I wouldn't choose justice over blood. He was wrong, and he never understood his mother at all. Yes, I said quietly, I will. The word landed hard. Derek's mocking smile vanished. Lucas looked up in shock. I knew there was no turning back. Derek straightened, his tone sharpening. Fine. I used Lucas's information, but it wasn't personal, Dad. It was business. Business. I kept my voice calm. You stole from people who trusted you. Elderly people who worked their entire lives. Shut up, Lucas, Derek snapped, spinning on his silent brother. Those people had more money than they needed. I built something with it. I made millions while you taught algebra for $52,000 a year. I turned the laptop toward them. 6 victims. Real names. Doris Keller, 83. Norman Pierce, 81. Harold Webb. Rosalie Collins. Every one of them came to your mother after you vanished with their retirement. I clicked through Louise's files. Here are the forged signatures. Your handwriting pretending to be Lucas's. Here's the money trail accounts in Lucas's name feeding your shell companies. Greenpoint. Cascade. All yours. Derek's jaw tightened. He glanced at the door, calculating. You want the truth? He sneered at Lucas. Every failure you had was because I made it happen. Derek, I began. No. Let's finish it. He stepped closer. The bankruptcy me. Credit cards in your name. Maxed out. Never paid. Your score dropped to 480. That's why you couldn't get loans. Promotions. Lucas trembled, Stella pressed against him. And Savannah Derek continued cruelly calm. I sent her statements. Accounts you didn't know existed. She thought you were lying. I destroyed your marriage. On purpose. Stop, Lucas whispered. I won, Derek shouted. You lost. Your apartment, your car, your life, because I'm better. Dad, Stella cried softly. Lucas held her, unable to speak. No, Derek, I said. You lost. I opened the office door. Agent Craig Matheson stepped in, followed by 2 FBI agents. Derek Foster Matheson said evenly, You're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and elder financial abuse. Derek went pale. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. An agent cuffed him. The sound echoed. You stopped being my son, I said, my voice breaking, when you framed your brother and stole from the elderly. When you let us believe Lucas was failing while you destroyed him. Please. Louise knew, I continued. She spent her last 2 years dying and gathering proof to protect Lucas. It took her death for me to finally see. Matheson read the rights as Derek was let out shouting threats I no longer heard. The door closed. Silence rushed in. Grandpa Stella asked, Where are they taking Uncle Derek? I knelt. He hurt people, sweetheart. Now he has to face what he did. Is Dad in trouble? No. Your dad is innocent. Always was. I hugged Lucas. He collapsed against me, sobbing. Your mother did this, I said softly. She knew who you were. I was the blind one. Later, after they left, I watched the empty street. The FBI car was gone. The son I'd praised was lost. The son I'd overlooked was finally free. There was no victory. Only truth. Justice had been served. It didn't feel like winning. There was no trial. 3 weeks after Derek's arrest, his lawyer contacted Agent Matheson with a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. In exchange for full cooperation, revealing every shell company and hidden asset, Derek received 22 years instead of the 50 plus he faced at trial. I attended the sentencing alone. Lucas offered to come, but I told him no. This was something I needed to witness by myself. Judge Carolyn Reynolds, a veteran federal judge with steel gray hair and eyes shaped by decades on the bench, reviewed the plea and addressed my son directly. Mr. Foster, she said, you did not merely steal money. You systematically destroyed your brother's life. You used his name, identity, and reputation as cover. If this had gone unchecked, he would have been arrested first. You built your success on his ruin. Derek stood in silence, his tailored suits replaced by prison orange. This is a profound betrayal, she continued. You exploited elderly victims and framed your own brother. The law allows mercy. The facts do not. She sentenced him to 22 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release, and ordered full restitution of $1.8 million. He would serve his sentence at FCI Sandstone. With no parole, he would serve at least 19 years. He was 44. He would be 63 when released, if he survived that long. They led him away. He never looked at me. 2 months later, restitution was complete. Derek's Chicago mansion sold for $1.2 million. His Tesla boat and investment accounts were seized and liquidated. The government recovered $1.4 million. I added $200,000 from Louise's life insurance. It was what she would have wanted. Checks went to all 6 victims. Not full repayment, but an average of 88% of what they'd lost. For people who believed their savings were gone forever, it felt like a miracle. Mrs. Keller received $335,000. When I told her, she cried. Because of Louise and you, she said, my grandson can go to college. Lucas's vindication came slowly but surely. The local paper ran a story clearing his name. The school board honored him with an integrity award. Fraud reports corrected his credit history. Recovery would take years, but the path forward was finally clear. Community support overwhelmed him. Parents of former students raised $40,000 to help him rebuild. Lucas cried when he told me, 3 months after sentencing, I sold the house on Monroe Street. Too many memories. Louise dying upstairs, discovering the truth in her office. Derek taken away in handcuffs. I couldn't stay. I bought a modest home 10 minutes from Lucas's apartment. 2 weeks later, Lucas and Stella moved in with me. His credit was still damaged, he said, but we both knew the truth. We needed each other. I began volunteering at the Senior Center teaching workshops on protecting against financial fraud. Turning pain into purpose felt like continuing Louise's work. Before selling the old house, I stood one last time in Louise's office. I decided I wouldn't turn it into a reading room. Instead, in our new home, I recreated it. Her desk, her books, her diplomas. A memorial to a woman who fought cancer and corruption at the same time, who spent her final strength protecting the son I failed to see. She protected us even after death through evidence recordings and truth. That was Louise's legacy, not the degree, not the career, not even the marriage, but the courage to fight for what was right even when it cost her everything, even when it cost her me. On a cold December morning, 3 months after Derek's sentencing, we held a small ceremony in what I called the Louise Memorial Office. I had recreated it in our new home with care. East-facing windows caught the morning sun just as they had in the old house. Louise's desk sat beneath them, her reading glasses framed beside her law degree. Family photos lined the shelves, our wedding, the boys as children, Stella's birth. It wasn't a museum. It was a living space. Lucas paid bills there. Stella did homework at Louise's desk. Above the desk hung a bronze plaque. Louise Foster, 1955-2024. She fought for truth even when it cost her everything. 4 of us gathered that morning, Lucas and Stella Mrs. Keller, who insisted on coming despite the cold, and me. Grandpa asked me to read something, Stella said, her 12-year-old voice steady despite tears. She held up a typed page. It's an essay I wrote for school. A person who changed my life. She cleared her throat and began. My grandmother died before I really knew her. I was only 11 when cancer took her. But this year I learned something amazing. While she was dying, she was also fighting. Not just cancer. She was fighting crime. My uncle did something very bad. He stole money from old people and made it look like my dad did it. For 10 years, my dad's life was ruined by lies. He lost his credit, his marriage, and his confidence. But my grandma knew. Even while sick, she spent 2 years investigating. She gathered evidence, recorded conversations, and built a case. When she died, she left it for my grandpa to find. Because of her, my dad was proven innocent. Because of her, the bad people were punished. Because of her, we got our family back. My grandma was like a guardian angel. She saved my dad even after she was gone. That's the kind of person I want to be, someone who fights for what's right, even when it's hard. Stella folded the paper. Mrs. Keller wiped her eyes. Lucas hugged his daughter, tears running freely. Then Lucas spoke voice thick. "Mom," he said to Louise's photo, "thank you for believing in me when no one else did. Thank you for fighting a battle I didn't even know existed." He turned to me. "Dad, thank you for finishing what Mom started, for choosing truth, for choosing me." I couldn't speak. I only held my son in an embrace 41 years overdue. After Mrs. Keller left and Stella went downstairs, I stood alone in the office. Sunlight cast long shadows across Louise's desk. People ask how I found the strength to turn in my own son. The truth is, I didn't. Louise did. She fought 2 battles, one against cancer, one against corruption. She lost the first, but she won the second, and that victory will outlast us all. Derek is serving 22 years at FCI Sandstone. We don't visit. Some betrayals run too deep. Louise taught me that love sometimes means protecting the innocent even when it costs everything. She didn't just leave evidence, she left truth. And truth gave us back our family, one built on honesty, not blind loyalty. Snow drifted past the windows. Stella's voice called from downstairs. "Grandpa Dad's making hot chocolate." I took one last look at Louise's smiling photo and went down to join them, 3 generations healing together. "Tell me another story about Grandma," Stella said. I smiled. Every story about her is a story about bravery. I'm 68 years old now, and if there's one lesson I've learned from this true story, it's this: don't be blind like I was. Don't ignore the signs. Don't favor one child over another. Don't wait until someone dies to see their courage. For 44 years, I thought I knew my family. God showed me I was wrong. I thought I knew which son to be proud of. God revealed I'd been celebrating the wrong one. I thought my wife was just a good attorney. God opened my eyes. She was a warrior. These grandpa stories I tell Stella now, they're different from the grandpa stories I used to tell. They're honest. They're about mistakes and blindness and learning too late. But they're also about redemption, about how God can use even our failures to bring truth to light. This true story taught me that sometimes love means choosing justice over comfort, that real family is built on truth, not blind loyalty, that the people we underestimate, like my son Lucas, like my dying wife, are often the ones with the most strength. If you're living this kind of true story right now, if you suspect something's wrong, but you're afraid to look, don't wait like I did. God gives us courage when we need it, but we have to be willing to use it. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone. And if these grandpa stories moved, you subscribe to the channel and share this true story with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set us free. God bless you all.